This is Frank J. Avella with Awards Daily. Today, it's my pleasure to welcome an actor who moves seamlessly from TV to screen to stage. Emmy winner Carrie Preston. Carrie, it's a pleasure to have you on.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I have to start by asking about Elsbeth because she is one of my favorite characters ever. You won an Emmy
Okay.
playing her and on The Good Wife.
Mhm.
Was the character always going to be recurring?
Well, one hopes on these kinds of shows, especially shows by Robert and Michelle King, because as if you're a fan of The Good Wife and The Good Fight, they bring these characters on, and then they always show up, later down the line, or they don't. So when I came on at the end of the first season, I mean, I knew it was a delicious role. You could just tell on the page. It was like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't mess this up. This is such a good one. And so I did those couple of episodes, and then I didn't hear anything for a whole season.
Oh.
And so I thought, well, there that went. I guess I blew that one, because we're crazy actors. Our brains are crazy. And so I assumed that. And then it turns out, oh no, no, no. No, they were just finding a way to, to bring Elsbeth back in a way that would make sense. So so they thankfully did call again, and then, they kept calling into the good fight.
Yep,
Yeah.
that was my next. I mean, and The Good Fight is a series with this bold edge to it. Was it like going home, or was it a different kind of feel?
Oh, definitely like going home. They have a lot of the same crew that they use over and over, and then of course some of the same cast with Christine. And so it really was. I never felt like I was a guest. I always felt like I was a part of the fam in on that show and in those two worlds. Yeah.
And now Elsbeth gets her own series.
Well, we hope. I
We
I
hope.
did shoot a. I shot a pilot.
Okay.
It called Elsbeth, and so that was pretty exciting to have, to go from being like the side dish to the main course. It was a big responsibility, but also a huge huge honor, and I was really excited to be able to do it. So we just finished it pretty recently, and so we're waiting to hear. If it gets picked up, we'll know pretty soon. And we shot it for CBS proper, like straight up, not Paramount Plus. So if it goes to series, it'll be on their network.
Wow, and you'll
So
be really busy then.
fingers
Fingers
crossed.
crossed.
Yes,
Yep,
yes,
fingers
yes,
crossed.
yes,
I wanted to talk about two of your current indie films. First
yes,
off, Space Oddity, which is this
yes,
sweet, funny film with this tragic core to it. Uh,
yeah.
can you tell me a little bit? Jane tries to be the best mom possible, even though you know
Mhm.
she's hurting. Can you tell me about your approach to playing her?
Well, I love the script. I thought it was such a sweet way to deal with grief. And for those who don't know, it's about this young man who loses his brother, and then it's about how he and the family deal with that loss. And I play his mother. Kevin Bacon plays his father. We're these flower farmers, and we're just trying to get by in the way that you do when you lose a child. And he really is choosing to escape, and so he joins this space program, which promises to take him to Mars for the rest of his life. But he spent the first year of grief not even leaving his room. So when you play, the mother of someone like that, yes, it sounds far fetched that he's got this space program that will take him to Mars. But when you're the mother and your son has not left his room for a year, you're just happy, to have him have something that gets him out of bed. And so I really just concentrated on that, and just this woman who wants to love her son through what is, the hardest thing that she's ever been through, and definitely he has ever been through. But he's still her son, and he's alive. And so she's going to be there with him no matter what.
See, one of the deceptive things for me was when I read the blurb and, the title, I thought, "Oh, okay, this is going to be, supernatural sci-fi." It's not. It's grounded in this lovely realism.
Yeah, it really is, and the fact that it takes place on this flower farm, you're dealing with a lot of metaphors of, rooting yourself in the here and now, planting seeds for things that will grow later. Not you don't know, but if you plant the seeds, then hope springs eternal. So, there are all these beautiful metaphors, about choosing what you have instead of wishing for, things to be different, which can lead to suffering, especially when it comes to something as definitive as death.
Yeah. And Kyra Sedgwick directed,
Yeah.
what was that
Yeah,
like?
she's lovely. She's so lovely. And, I mean, of course, I was a huge fan of hers, as an actor to actor. And then she's also a hyphenate like myself, she directs as well. I do as well. And so, we had a common language already. So when we met, over Zoom, just like you and I are doing, um, we hit it off like that. And so she was great, 'cause she knows how to talk to actors, and so many directors just really don't. So it was lovely to have that.
I also wanna talk about One of These Days, which, you played Joan in this film. Tell us a little about the film, and, what was it about Joan that made you wanna dive into this? Because it shows a dramatic side that people who might be familiar with your other work don't normally see.
Yes, exactly. That was what drew me to it. Also, it was this really heartbreaking story, but loosely based on real events. So it's based on these endurance tests where people stand around a truck and they put their hands on the truck, and the last one standing wins. And it's this kind of bleak look at how the American dream can really go awry, like what we as Americans are willing to endure in order to change our fortunes. And so I liked the message of it, and I also was really drawn by the fact that it's an outsider's perspective because it was written and directed by a German filmmaker, Bastian Günther. So he's coming at it from a different perspective. He's looking at these things that our country does, to people who are less fortunate, and making entertainment out of it. He's looking at it as quite alarming, and so it was an interesting perspective to have on it. And I think he did it beautifully. I mean, it's a real art house film. And then the role, it just has such a balance, of pathos and also a little bit of levity in there. Um, because it's such a dark story, I think you need somebody to shepherd it through there that you can kind of relate to or understand. And I grew up with, a lot of women like that because I'm Southern and she's Southern. And you always try to bring a unique perspective, a Southern perspective to these roles that I play. I noticed that you're wearing a True Blood t-shirt,
I
speaking of
am, I am, I am.
Southern characters. Yeah, so there are a little similarities, I think, in some ways, in the where Arlene from True Blood comes from, and where Joan from One of These Days comes from, but they're really completely different women.
It was fascinating to me. I thought of the dance marathons from the 1930s and
Yes,
how these things that they're doing today, it's
yes,
almost like going back.
yes, exactly, exactly. I don't know if you ever saw that movie. They shoot horses, don't they?
One of my
Yes,
favorites.
which is an amazing film that's also very much about this sort of dystopian view of what we do to try to get something material that we think is going to change our lives.
Yeah.
We think that, and sometimes it does. It does. With these characters that are standing around this truck in our movie, it would change their lives. To win that truck, it would
Yeah.
just not the material side of it, but also the pride and all the things that would feed them by feeling like they had some purpose.
And I felt like Joan was like this character out of something like Robert Altman's Nashville. She's going through the film, and then I'm not going to give away the ending, but then at the very end, she needs to basically step up, and I think she does magnificently.
you know what? I was very proud of that with her, that she has the skills. You first think, oh, she's really just taking advantage of these people, but she cares about it. She cares about them. She doesn't, she cares about this dealership that she works for. She has the same desperation that they have, to do something good, to make something of her life. Her daughter has left, she's single, her daughter's gone to college, she's single, so there's this underlying need in all of these characters that I think is really beautifully drawn by this person who's not even American. He
Yeah.
really did create quite an American story.
Yeah, I felt so too. Uh,
Yeah.
my True Blood question is
Yes.
looking back now, um, it feels like okay, True Blood was such an integral part. It was groundbreaking television. Ultimately, it was. Looking back now with all this perspective, can you tell me what you feel about the show and your role in it?
It was such a life-changing project for me as an actor, because I was, I'd done a lot of film and TV and stuff like that, but I hadn't done anything that, hit on that level on television. And so I remember when we were shooting the pilot, um, I came up out of the subway one day and they were doing this big promotional thing where they had this truck that had that logo that you're wearing on your t-shirt. And there were people standing out front going, sign the Vampire Rights Amendment, sign the Vampire Rights Amendment. And people were signing it. And I was like, is this? And so I said to them, I was like, is this about a show called True Blood? And they were like, how did you know that? Like, I'm on the show. So I signed the petition as Arlene Fowler. Then when the show aired, none of us were together to see what a big hit it was because we shot it all. There was a writer's strike, speaking of topical things, because we have another one coming up.
Yeah.
Hopefully it won't happen. But so we had shot, the first 3 episodes, we shut down for the writer's strike. Then we came back and shot the rest. And all of it was in the can. And then we all went on our merry way. And then it hit. And so that doesn't happen much anymore because of streaming and because of, where we are right now with everything being available at all times, on streamers or on your phone or whatever. That wasn't happening then. That wasn't happening yet. So I think it was, I feel really excited that I was a part of something that really hit the zeitgeist, in a way that just doesn't happen anymore. And I think now that it is re-airing, and I have people coming up to me who are young who are discovering it for the first time, it seems that the story is holding up, which says that we did something right, back then.
It really does. I watched a few episodes recently, and it's amazing how it holds up. It's actually a little more frightening today.
I think so too. Yes, with how many groups are disenfranchised right now, and they're fighting for their rights. You can plug in any group, and at the same time, it can also just be popcorn for adults.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of disenfranchised group, you've become a queer icon. I'm sure you're already aware of that I mean, they, them, and When We Rise, and of course, True Blood. And you even directed one, 29th and Gay, which is a
Yeah.
wonderful film.
Thank
Uh,
you. I'm glad that you saw that. And so it was our little engine that could. We made that movie when it was right at the beginning of, do it DIY filmmaking, where you could buy the little camera with the little mini DV and you could shoot it and you could edit it on your home computer. We were kind of right at the beginning of that. And so, that movie, James Vasquez wrote it. I went to Juilliard with him. He's one of my best friends. And, he wrote it and he was like, hey, do you want to make this thing with me? And so we did it with his husband, his now husband. And it was just the three of us, and our friends. And we were doing all the lights and doing everything and editing ourselves. And, we parlayed that into the next film, which was Ready Okay. Again, it was for the LGBTQ audience. And James directed that. I starred in it. And, we just saw that there was a need for, films like that, that were speaking, that you could take your family to, that weren't about sex so much, that were about coming of age, or, a little boy who wants to be a cheerleader, or, we really, when you think back, I mean, we were kind of ahead of the game on that, because, it's about a little boy who wants to wear dresses. And, now we're in this incredible, amazing revolution of gender. And I think it's super exciting. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that we were, able to kind of play a small, tiny part in the evolution.
Yeah, stories that need to be told, and yeah,
Stories that need to be told. Yeah.
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 Uh, you just finished working with Alexander Payne on the
Yes.
Holdovers. Can you tell me a
Yes.
little bit about that?
Oh, it was so great. I mean, I'm a huge fan of his from Citizen Ruth on, and um, he's everything you want him to be. He's Midwestern, he's kind. I auditioned for him on Just Like This. And then I, month later, maybe I thought it was over. I see this phone number come up on my phone that I don't recognize. I don't answer it, leave, and there's a message. Hi, Carrie, it's Alexander Payne. I'm wondering if you could call me back. And I was like, so I call him back, and he was like, I'd like to invite you to be a part of the movie. And it was just the most classiest way to say you got the part, with this guy. And that attitude was there from the beginning of the shoot to the very end. Because my character, I shot a little bit at the beginning of the shoot, and then I went away for like a month or more to come back to shoot the rest of it. And everybody was still happy. The crew was happy. The actors were happy. And that starts, and that's all him. He was just having the time of his life doing this movie as if he had never done a movie before. It was just like everything was new and fresh. And so, that's something to definitely learn from as a director, is to
Okay.
bring that kind of attitude every day and be grateful that you get to work. And he really was. And then to be able to work with Paul Giamatti too, who's such a genius actor, like probably one of the best actors I've ever worked with, because he's just so comfortable with the work, and he's so comfortable with the character. It's pretty seamless. And so that was just a lovely little alchemy to work with
Yeah.
those people.
Cannot wait for it to be released later this year.
Yeah.
I can spend an hour just talking about your theater work. Obviously, we can't, but I actually saw your last Broadway play, which was Festin.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, I'm just curious. Is when are we going to see you on stage again? I guess is what I want to ask.
I guess so. Yeah. I know. It's so funny. That particular show, you know, I we all poured our hearts into it, and it was rather dismissed. And I thought, wow, if that's the contract between, actors and critics and the audience, I kind of don't want to be a part of it right now. So I had to take a little break because it broke my heart, and I thought, wow, the audience is, they just read the reviews and then they believe them, and then, or a Broadway show needs to have one review in order to make it. And it's a little different now, I think, because we have a little bit more diversity in how people are receiving reviews, which I think is good. It's a little more, there's a more of a democratization of it, which I think is good. But anyway, the break turned into a longer break, turned into a longer break. And then I just started doing more film and TV and then directing. And I will say that I'm still very much involved in theater, in that I'm involved with the New Harmony Project, which is a new development project for new plays. And so I'm very involved with them. I support them. Sometimes I go there. I directed a play right before the pandemic at the Alabama Shakespeare Festival, a world premiere of a new play called Buzz, by Susan Ferrara, which was amazing. And it was just so wonderful to be in a rehearsal room again. So I am very involved. I do a lot of readings of plays, you know, so I am very involved. I just haven't found the quite the right thing that's going to make me want to get back on the stage again.
Yeah.
I know it's coming though. I know it's coming.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait. We can't wait here in New York. I want have two more questions for you. You were so
Okay.
funny as Coyote's mom on Grace and Frankie, and you got to work with the amazing Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin. What was that
Yes.
experience like?
You know what? Those two women were so wonderful to me. So welcoming, so kind. They're hilarious together, you know, because they just bounce off of each other and, you know, they have this rapport with each other. And, you know, I was coming right into a moving train. And I'll never forget we rehearsed and I think we were even shooting. And I had this chit chat with Jane in between takes. We were just sitting in our director chairs and just waiting. And she was asking me questions about my work. And, you know, she asked like where I went to school. I said Juilliard. She goes, "Oh, I wish I had gone to Juilliard." And I was like, "You're doing fine, Jane Fonda. You're doing just fine." But like it was so interesting to hear, you know, that she wished that she had had some kind of formal training. I'm like, oh my gosh, she was like trained by, you know, life and living with that father and being on sets her whole life. So anyway, I go back to get my touch-ups done after lunch, and the makeup artist says to me, "Congratulations." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, Jane doesn't really talk to people like that. She's always kind, but she doesn't really go out of her way because she's got a lot on her mind. She works hard and she has a lot to do. And so she needs, you know, uses her free time between takes to really focus on the lines or work with Lily. So, you know, the fact that she talked to you meant that, you know, she must have really thought you were great." And I was like, wow, that I'm glad I didn't know that going in, you know, because I would have been more nervous. But she was super lovely, and so was Lily, and they took pictures with me. And, you know, it was one of those things that makes you just go, oh, this is why I love this business, you know, to see iconic women like that who go out of their way to welcome a new person into their tribe.
What a lovely story. She's one of my heroes, so that's
Yeah,
incredible and not surprising to hear, actually.
yeah, yeah.
I want to ask you finally. You do so much. You know, every time I turn around, there's a new Carrie Preston thing to enjoy, which is fantastic. What's coming up now for you?
Well, we did a pilot for of Elspeth, which is the character I played on The Good Wife and the Good Fight. We're waiting to hear about that. And then I'm just hoping that that will happen. And if not, I don't know what's next. I'm trying to get more directing work. I've been doing a lot of directing of television. I did, I directed on Claws, which was a show that I acted on.
Yes.
I directed on The Good Fight. I got to do an episode, two episodes of that in their fifth and sixth seasons. And I directed two simultaneous episodes of season two of Your Honor for Showtime with Bryan Cranston. Directed episodes 8 and 9 of that, which fairly recently those came out. So I'm really into that. It's exercises all my muscles, to say the least. So I'm hoping that I'll get to do some more episodic.
That sounds fantastic. And let's make sure that you're also on screen as well, okay?
I'm going to do my best.
Okay. Thank you so much
Yes.
for taking the time out. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.